So I am looking at Nickelodeon shows this time around, and for quick reminder, I was born in 2000, so 23 right about now, but that means that grew up at 2010s, 2000s with a good bit of Nickelodeon here and there. And as for the list itself, there's not really a unwatched tag, so I will throw that in the watchable one, as I don't want to default just say it's trash. So, having said that, let's get started. So, for Drake and Josh, I would place this just like really high up here because I just remember just how funny the show was growing up. Just like it was Drake, Josh, and how just like Megan throws a wrench into things just like every so few episodes. But I like how they flesh out all the different characters, like including just like the family, just like not making them just like main supports, but they just like have these long running gags of just like each individual character, just like Drake's always getting in trouble one way or another. Josh is a bit like nerdy in a way, but he has like a love of opera. He works at like the movie theater and just like little nuances about him. Looking back, it was a pretty memorable show that you'd watch on airtime here and there, but I'd say it holds up probably like really high up there. Also, for these shows, I am also not gonna be taking in consideration just like say like tea or like drama that are around these shows in particular, as I try to keep myself up to date on these shows, but I recognize that like modern day there's like a lot of like more contemporary drama with these shows in particular. Moving on from that, I would say Zoe 101. So this was about girl and how she was to like a boarding school in like Malibu. I think he was like went into like Pepperdine or something in that area for filming. I'd say I don't fully remember it too well, but I would place it on like a watchable because I think I'm not one to speak about it where I don't have too much info about it. I just remember it sort of reminded me like a real life version of what I imagine. Just like I don't think 16 is a comparable one, but 16 would be comparable in terms of like teenagers and how they like live their life. Not necessarily like connected to like the mall space as in 16, but more so just like as Zoe 101 does in like their boarding school type setting, at least. For tangent side, moving on to next one, I'd say iCarly was. I I think I'll place it up here as well because I'd say it's definitely like the first of its kind at the time being. I remember it was Sam, I, Sam, Carly, Freddie, and just fleshing out them as a whole on how they're just like going through about the show, but then making it so that they have just like the adjacent characters or supporting cast just be able to I'd say just like work their way throughout as well. As I remember like Gibby went from like a supporting character to like a main character. There was I want to say his name was like Neville or like different other ones, but just a lot of different memorable characters from the show as I forget their name. But I remember how at the time it was just really memorable for just like the random like gimmicks or like running gags that they have like time to time. Oh, how could I forget like Spencer too and Spencer Shea and how he played a role in that show as well. I think like it lends itself well because I remember it from like Drake and Josh with like the actor doing like being in the movie theater to like where he is then. That aside, moving on would be Rugrats. I'd say I'm gonna feel bad for placing it below this, but I'd say it's like for me, my nostalgia factor doesn't translate as well with Rugrats because I can't say I remember it as well, and I can't say it's like staple in terms of memory wise for me, so I would place it a notch below. SpongeBob, I would say, this is difficult. I'd place it slightly below Carly and Josh. I'd wanna like if I were to categorize again, I'd do like separate like cartoons and otherwise, but that's besides. But I'd say for SpongeBob, I can really appreciate how similarly there's just like a lot of different running gags throughout the show, but at the same time you can sort of like watch it again as an adult sometimes and just like pick out it's like different humor and like different things at end of day. I also end up finding on like my For You page sometimes just like here are all the fish characters and the different ways they would just like talk to the different main characters or like their just like their quotes or like what makes them what makes them memorable end of day, whether it's like the person who yelled like chocolate or like just like the different memorable people at end of day. I also appreciate how they so weaved in say like the movies and just like added on to like their universe. But I gotta say I am not so plugged in like after more like elementary middle school for me. But I'd say it had some good memories growing up in terms of like watching reruns here and there. Mm, I'd say I'd feel bad for placing this here because it's that I would watch episodes here and there, but I wouldn't bring anything with me in terms of the value that I got from it. Not that I'm watching for like educational value, but in terms of just like, do I remember anything from this? And was it like funny, memorable, or one way or another? Let's see. Arnold, I would place, I'd say a bracket above like Rugrats for me, because I'd say similar to Rugrats, it's like I can't remember it as well in terms of the character, but I do remember just like the main ensemble and general cast in terms of things. Like, but I have to say it's like I don't remember just like general plot elements as well, but I just remember just like the school setting, just like here and there for episodes, just like there's like there's like different standard episodes that you'd see in these type of shows, similar to say like and Everybody Hates Chris or similar type shows like that. But with Hey Arnold and how it's more like animated, just like different expectations that you'd see from like one of these like school type shows and them hitting the nail on it altogether. I do recognize that like Hey Arnold was like one of the more like pioneers of this, but I don't think I can speak to it as much as I'd like in terms of like articulating it. I'm not like saying like an essay one way or another, but more so just like speaking random thoughts. For this one, I have not watched, so I will not speak to it. Similar to this, and similar to this. As for this one, it's more I saw I saw like their Good Burger movie. I wouldn't say it's like growing up and see it's more like recently, and I recognize that they made like a remake of it for like more modern viewers at least. I do not know enough about it. Similar to this. Fairly odd. I would place a notch above and or matching maybe SpongeBob because for the series I've like the running gag of just like I guess like Timmy and how he has just like the general rapport of like all the different characters, but they also have the running gags of like, let's see, Chip. I'm just gonna name off like random characters like Chip Skylark and just like his shiny teeth. Uh, Doug Dimmadome and it's just like tall bucket. I forget what it's called. It's like the Texas like gallon hat or something, but it's just like super tall hanging. Um, Vicky and how she's always trying to like bust them all together. But I can appreciate just like all the individual episodes that they set up for like Timmy as a whole as he goes through like different things. I think they did have a movie. I want to say it was a crossover between them and Jimmy Neutron where they sort of like swapped universes through like a TV remote sort of thing where you're like transported one way or another. I'd say that was pretty cool to watch and I particularly enjoyed it. So definitely up there for me at least. This one I have no comment. Similar to this one. Similar for this one. Similar for this one. Similar for this one. As well as this one. This one. Oh man, I feel bad for this because I really appreciated Sheen within like the Jimmy Neutron sort of universe. I'd say a notch below Carl, but it's like I still found Sheen like funny and a very good. I don't see him as like a comic relief character. I see him as just like interesting enough, just like throw random just like retorts here and there, sort of a person. But I just don't know if he held his own ground in terms of a show itself, because it sort of like throws him on like a planet with just like here's these like I want to say they were like anthropomorphic. Can't I want to say monkeys, but I don't want to be mistaken. No, were they? Ah, yes. Okay. So just like because here's like the Carl equivalent, and then here's just like the extraterrestrial part of it and how they're all thrown into a mix. And it just didn't quite feel the same. And I know that's like the general vibe they're trying to go for, but I don't know if I wanted to keep watching as a viewer overall. Moving on, this one I have not watched, so I will be unable to comment on. Similar to this one, addition to this one, in addition to this one, addition to this one, addition to this one. Oh my. Sorry, it's a bit of a trend here, but I promise I have seen a good bit of TV. I'd say I would place this up here for me at least because I really remember the show. I remember the show in terms of how Jenny is more of just this like teenage robot, and she goes on just like random endeavors supported by just the supporting cast, as the names escape me at this moment. I remember it was just like a taller, slender white guy at least. But I remember there's like a villain, and it also has like her parents, and then like yeah, like this was the relation, and then mom in addition to like other characters. I honestly I did see reruns here and there, and I think the plot as is like captivated me enough at the time being, where they'd be like fighting random monsters or like have like different engagements or like plot elements here and there. I feel like I'm just like talking out of my like blank here with this show, but I do think that the memory is have stayed with me throughout in terms of appreciating it versus like not being able to articulate what like the plot was about, who the main villains or like main character or general plot. But I just my understanding was that like she's transformed into like a robot now and she has to go on with like everyday life. I think for this one I will place it as watchable because I think for this it's I don't have enough of a opinion on it at least. All I remember was I'd say like my 9 or 10 year old self was like, "Oh, what does this word mean?" And I I would recommend typing it fully. I want to say that was like Nat Wolf and like other people where I want to say they did like work with like John Green and other people afterwards. Wolf, yeah, yeah, Nat Wolf and how he does like his different work altogether. I'd say for him, I can't say I'm as familiar with like what ended up happening in the show and different elements of it. This one, not certain, haven't watched. I'd say I place it yeah, why not? I'd say Big Time Rush I place really high up here because it just reminds me a lot of just like what I would imagine just like One Direction or just like different other show different other like groups at the time being. But I think at this point I wasn't really in touch with just like my music self in terms of like streaming music or like listening to different things growing up. But I did eventually grow to appreciate just how the show developed in addition to like fleshing out these different characters and how they're just working in this band setting and just like the random endeavors they're on. I think for this I in the modern day at least I just see TikToks here and there of more just modern music being overlaid with like their dance ensembles here and there and different things. But I think I appreciate it enough to place it here at least. It's just like the memories I hold to me at least. True gem. I think for this show I can't say I remember it as well. From my understanding, it's like a younger girl who's now like an important executive at like a more entertainment type space. I don't recall if it was entertain, but just having her just like steer the ship and work around different things and just the central plot focusing around that. I'd say I can't remember enough to place it a notch higher, but I did enjoy like the entertainment value that it provided, at least. I do feel like some of these like are some like cop out answers though. Oh man, I feel bad for like Fred the show because I feel like for him I think he struck gold just like within like the internet growing up because I remember it was like him, Ryan Higa, Smosh, and different ones were like the headliners for YouTube at the time being. And then I saw like Fred the show itself. I remember it's like John Cena or like different things. I remember it was like a movie or like several renditions of a movie, and that was really funny to me to be able to see that, especially like wrestling Fred, scrawny white kid versus, well, like John Cena in particular. But I don't think there's actually like a very good plot for it, at least not to which I can speak of. To which I'll have to unfortunately place it more in like a trash at least. This one I have not watched, so I can't speak to. Not watched, cannot speak to. I know of, but I cannot say I have watched. And similar to this one, Jimmy Neutron Isle Place. I'd say on par with different other ones. I'd say slightly like higher than say like Fairly Odd Parents and other ones. I think for this one, I can appreciate how they build out just like the different characters. I remember it was like Carl and I want to say he has like love of like no, it's not. I'm trying to think. I want to say it's llamas and different ones. And I have misidentified it. Perhaps. Ah, yes, it is. Okay, cool. But previous is like internet reference. Okay, so I remember it's him, and then Sheen was another main character supporting, and then there's Jimmy in his like lab, just like working on just like random bits here and there. And I forget what the dog's name was. I want to say it's Fight, but I don't think it's. I do know. Is it Goddard? Okay, it's Goddard. You see, my memory is really bad sometimes. But I'd say for Jimmy Neutron, I can appreciate how they also build out, say, like parents as well, in addition to like I'm trying to remember the main cat. It was like I want to say it was like Libby. It was like a blonde girl and then like a black girl, but I don't quite remember them. Ah, yes, so the main ones. And I don't, can't say Nick. I do not remember him as well. Let's see. Okay, here's the teacher. And then like these adjacent peoples. I do remember like the general cast though. I really like their crossover with like the Very Odd Parents from before, and like how they like traveled like what would be just like a multiverse now at least. But it was really cool to see that all together. This one I do not know enough. Do not know enough. And I think with this one I'm trying to separate like what like Jeanette McCurdy as like a person went through with like the production of this, in addition to like Ariana Grande and like how they're a part of, say like Victoria's and iCarly before. But I think for this series as a whole, like separate from that, I don't particularly think I remember really good synergy from it at least. And I think for me, I just didn't particularly like it as much as those individual shows. And that sort of like influenced me as a whole with these at least. As for Victorious itself, I'm trying to think. I would place it. I'd say it's like iCarly tier, slightly below at least. Is that I'd say for this one, I think the main likable character for me at least it was like Robbie or I'd say honestly I think it's like Robbie, probably just Robbie or like Kat or just like other characters, but it reminded me of like say like a Breakfast Club, having like not watched Breakfast Club prior to that, well like being a kid and all, but for this it's like I can appreciate how they just have just like random episodes here and there that just like are random endeavors doing what have you, just like random other things. Like I remember one episode they get stranded in like I want to say it's like a random country, and then they're trying to get their way out of it. Like I think it escapes me how they actually got there themselves. Excuse me. But I'd say for this, I think it's up there in terms of the cast has really good synergy with one another, and I think it's unmatched by others, say, except for say like a Drake and Josh or like iCarly, among different ones. Is this Invader Zim? Wanna say that's Invader Zim, unless I am mistaken. Hmm, if it is, if it is not, okay, it's clearly not. I thought it was up, but I'd say I do not know enough about it. Similar, this one I know of it, but I just don't know about it. For this one, I wouldn't say it's like, yeah, I think backyard, back at the, I think it just fits here. This is like the anthropomorphic, like barnyard animals at least, as I just don't particularly remember. I just remember it's like very mindless watch here and there, and I didn't quite relate to. Well, I mean, of course you don't relate to animal, but you know the general saying in terms of just like the cast, their camaraderie, and just like how they carry themselves. At least I cannot say I remember it as well. Don't know enough about it. I place it up here. I'd say it's like very S tier type. As I can easily say that this is like honestly like Zuko is like my profile for like online most days at least, and I remember that it still carries on to this day in terms of like how culturally like relevant it is to me. In terms of I'll see just like friend groups dressing up at on a just like yeah just like Halloween parties or like different things, but also just being able to say I grew up with this and I appreciate it for what it was worth. I really enjoyed that, but I also like how they broke it up into like these different books of like, oh, here's the air saga, here's like the fire one, here's the water one, here's the earth one. But they also built out all these different characters where you get to know them, just like their lore, their history about just like what makes them tick, what motivates them, and just making it just like a really well fleshed out world where you get to understand like what is like Bossing say and like Earth Kingdom and what's their beef with just like every other thing and be able to like flesh that out with like all the different ones. I think for this, it's without a doubt just like more S tier. Trying to see what else I can gush about for Avatar. Remember, not really spoilers. Well, I'd say it's like given us, but remember it's like Sako, which was the main one show. I think his like girlfriend turns into like a moon midway through, but he just like rotates regularly, just like not regular, but just like once in a blue. I guess I can technically say that, but pretty much just fleshing out just like each individual character where they're interesting enough and are able to stand alone, even if they're more of like a supporting cast type. Like you still fully understand them. I'm trying. I remember just like the guy that's like even the guy that says like my cabbages like every time his like cart gets like gone through is very memorable in itself. And of course like General Eero, sorry Uncle Eero, and just like the different characters as a whole. As for Korra, I- I'd say they're not on the same playing field as well. I recognize that it's more of a steampunk type world now, and For this one, it's pretty much just Korra is like a descendant of Avatar altogether, but I can appreciate like the world building elements as well, in addition to how they're fleshing out like say like romances, in addition to just like building out the plot throughout this different series of just like first season from my understanding was it was let's see the I want to say that was like the anti-bender type characters. Then there's a season where it's more like a spiritual world one, and then like cap it off. Try won't wanna again spoilers and everything, but they built out a very robust like fleshed out world similar to how Avatar does. Like they even made like their own like bending game at the end of the day, and I think it still has a really good legacy in terms of building out a world like that, different things. I can't say I connected with them as well as say like the original Avatar Last Airbender. I'm really excited for it because there's going to be a movie, a Netflix one with just more just a real life adaptation of it, just like real life casting crew, a Zuko spinoff, and I want to say the next Avatar animated one. I want to say it's a Earthbender. I could search that up. Let's see. I want to say it's. Oh, that is my bad. But I'd say resuming it, I would say. Well, after I search this at least. Yeah, preview here, it's like an Earthbender type person. Very like ominous. Not ominous, but it's very up in the air right now, at least up for interpretation. Next one, I would place Dude Perfect. I cannot comment on enough because I do not know enough about it. Say similar for this one. Similar for this one. I'd say for this, it's more of a guilty watch one. I want to say this was like the kid. I want to say this was the kid where he like dresses up and just. I don't want to say vigilante. I don't know if that's the right word, but he just like gets himself into just like a random assortment of different events at least. I know for these next two, these are like classics, but I gotta say, I do not know enough about them, and I have not watched them, so I cannot comment on them. And I feel like that means it's just more on the watch list, but I just cannot speak to them as well. Say similar. All of these queued up, I don't have a strong opinion on one way or another. I feel bad for placing this here because at the end of the day, I would say it's a guilty pleasure type watch if it's like nothing else is on type of a one. But I cannot say I would just watch it attention span wise at least. I'm not too sure of this one. Not too sure of this one. Similar with that. Similar for next few until we get to Ned's. For this one, I will once again try. I will set aside the T that is the Ned's Declassified podcast itself regarding like the cast, but just like itself as a show. I think it stands very high up here in terms of things, as I remember they're like middle school characters that are going through. I say like that's like puberty age in addition to just like sports, in addition to like popularity, just like all these like foreign things to a middle schooler they're trying to become comfortable with. But I can appreciate how they distill it into just like, here's these different facts about this world. And they make it interesting enough with just like a wide roster of characters in terms of, remember there was like Coconut had the janitor. Wow, that's a very specific character. But I remember it was like Mose, Ned, and Cookie are the three main ones, but they make it an interesting enough show to just like connect with everyone and just like be able to like see the show for itself. But they just make the central focus of each episode just like random topic that might interest you as like a middle schooler in itself. And it like stuck with you throughout in terms of things. Livewire, I will place. Do not know enough about it. Ren and Stimpy, it's like I want to get into it, but I have not yet. This one, it is. I'd say it's watchable. It's like I do not know it enough to really comment about it in particular. Do not know enough about it. Similar to this one. Sorry, I have to place this here because it's like I don't particularly remember liking it too much. I'd say similar to like Fanboy and Jump. It's more so like if there's nothing on, I'll place it. But besides that, I would not. Anyways, I do not know this enough. I think similar to this, it's like if there's nothing on, I would watch it. But I do not think it was for me, at least. Don't know enough about it. I am just queuing up a bunch of these for not know. But a lot of these I just do not know. I want to say this is a film. I think shows are encompassed, but I don't know it enough to. I think it's like I remember School of Rock himself in terms of Jack Black being within it and making it a very memorable experience, but I can't say I remember it like a standalone individual. Or speaking as for like it as the film itself, I would say I enjoyed it. Just like gave me very like High School Musical isn't the right reference. I'd say it's more like a summer camp type vibe and just like different ones. But I can't say I remember it as well to be able to really speak to it. For House of Anubis, it's like I've seen episodes here and there, but I don't know it enough to really speak to it. And for the last few, I'd say similarly, I do not know them too well, one way or another. I'd say this sort of wraps it, but I'd say S tier ones would more so be a lot of more childhood nostalgia, like 2000s, 2010s at least. And at that point, just really appreciating just the different shows in the roster, just like a Drake and Josh, Ned's Declassified, and iCarly, and more so. I want to say as much as I dislike Dan, like the showrunner as like a person and how like the drama that he's involved in, I do appreciate the shows that were created and the stars that were from it, and just having that like live on as like a memory in itself. I'm appreciative that like Avatar is like still like a long running franchise in itself, and it's still like continuing to we put out there. We just don't talk about the M. Night Shyamalan movie for that at least. But I can really enjoy how it's like still long running and it's still like has a pretty cool fan base as well, self-selection wise. But for that, I'd say of this, I was more like 2000s, 2010s at least. I can't say I know what the kids are watching nowadays though, because my understanding would be like Cartoon Network is like unfortunately like gone at least. And for Nick and Disney, I cannot say I am as plugged in at least. But yeah, that would be me talking shop randomly for a good amount of time now. But thank you if you watch like snippets here and there or just like full way through. But yeah, thanks again. And as always, don't forget to be awesome.